first?
Melanie.
Thank you.
Hello.
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 Hi,
How is
Melanie.
everyone doing this afternoon?
Very
good,
well.
thank you.
Good, we just had a big tour.
Right. Did you guys enjoy it?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, this new building is very different from what we're used to. But as you guys know, I am Melane Goncalves. I am the writer and director of Everything Within. I wrote this piece because I wanted to send a powerful message. I wanted, not only that, I wanted to leave behind a good mark. Not a good mark, a great mark. Like, you know how they always say, you should always end your last year, like end it off well, or leave behind something that someone will remember you by. This is what I wanted my piece to be, something that everyone will remember me by. And so I wrote the piece, and when I first wrote it, I knew that I wanted to leave behind a powerful message, so I decided, what can I do that will be powerful? What can I talk about that will be very powerful and impact everyone in some sort of way? So I decided that I wanted to talk about a journey of self-discovery, self-love. And I thought, how could I do this? How can I express this? And so at first I thought I wrote a script about a girl who was in a high school and she felt alone and she had this disease, this genetic disease, alopecia areata, and she thought she was the only one that had it, and she would always hide and feel subconscious about herself. And then she meets a friend who she later finds out also has this disease, and like they can relate. But then after reading it, I felt this isn't exactly what I wanted. I need something more powerful, something that's more, I don't know, different. And so I decided to challenge myself by turning my piece into an extremely avant-garde experimental piece by scrapping all the words in my script and making it silent. This was such a challenge and such a big step for me to do because I am a very straightforward person. I love things that are like right there, and experimental is not that at all. That is like it's far from that. And so I was talking to Mr. Way, and he was like, I think you should really try this. And I was like, you know what, you're right. I really want to do something different. I want to challenge myself. So I wrote a piece, and my second play, my final play, I just had a bunch of lines that I felt could help her feel this emotion, or things that she could be thinking in her head to help her feel these emotions. And then from that, I was like, okay, how am I going to do this? How am I going to tell her? The hardest part is to tell, not just to write a play with no words, but to tell your actor to act but with no words, or to tell a story without using any words. And so when I was auditioning Jacqueline Okima, my actress, I was looking at all these girls and I'm like, how am I going to tell them how to do this? Who's going to want to do this? How are they going to do this? But Jackie was amazing. I knew that she could do it from the moment that she auditioned. Like, I knew she was the perfect one. And so I chose her, and after that rehearsals, I basically just told her my idea and the story, and she just took it from there. And then we started going through those things that I wrote and connecting it to her so that she can feel the emotions. So instead of like the things that I thought she would think in her head, we tried to use things that that would help her feel those ways. So different things that she would think in her head if she wanted to feel better or feel sad. And that's what I did. Now my thesis, when I was writing my thesis, I had to talk about how I explore self-discovery and self-love. And so I wrote about the different, I started in the research section where I used the, where I used the different plays that I had seen within my 4 years at TAPA, seen and read, and that inspired me to help write this piece. I researched them and I talked more about them in detail if you guys look in there. and I talked about the different concepts that they use in those pieces and how I connected to them and I was able to use them in my play. And then after that, I started to write more about my experience with writing the piece and also how it connects to my play and how self-discovery is something that I feel is very important for happiness, for maybe not everyone, but most people. Thank you, and I'm glad I heard a lot of feedback from my teachers and from other people that you guys enjoyed it and that they enjoyed it, and I am so glad that you guys did. I'll take any questions at this moment.
Can you speak a little bit more to the specific plays that inspired your work?
Oh, Blue Man Group, Einstein on the Beach, even though it was like the most annoying thing to watch, but it was very, literally, if any of you guys watched it, you know. But it was really, in the end, so when we first watched that, I was like, okay, Mr. White, why are we doing this? I can't stand this. But then afterwards, after really thinking about it, I realized, wow, this really helped me and this really inspired me. And then also, one of the past seniors that was here last year, Jasmine Lopez, her piece, A Flickering Light in the Bird Cage. It's like the longest but very powerful name ever. And those 3 pieces really inspired me.
Would you guys like to introduce yourselves
Yeah.
first?
Yeah.
Yes.
I'd love to know all your names.
Yes. True.
My name is Jonathan Perry, and I'm a producer. We own the Newport Playhouse.
Oh, nice. I've been there before, Mr. Wright. Really
You
nice.
came to the show.
Yep.
I'm Olivia Salem. I also work at Newport Playhouse as a stage manager and occasional performer. Nice to meet you again.
Nice to meet you as well.
My name is Jose Luis Suazo. I'm an actor for ECAS Theater. We do theater in Spanish.
Oh, fun. That's very exciting.
My name is Darcy Bruce. I am a playwright and a professor at University.
Oh, wow.
I'm Sharon Carpenter. I'm an actor, and I work at the Players up the street at the Barker Playhouse, and I've also worked with Ms. Nega quite a bit. So
Yes. I recently
that's what-
watched 12 Angry Jurors there.
okay.
It's really nice.
Hi, I'm Marilyn Bush. I'm an actress. I also do theater reviewing for Motif magazine, and I do other stuff too. That's the majors.
Wow, it's nice meeting all of you.
Nature of the beast. Do a
Thank
little bit of
you.
everything.
Any other questions?
Couple things. Do you know anybody, or have you, in the whole process, do you speak to anyone who has suffered from alopecia?
I have. We actually have a student here. Her name is. Why am I freezing
So-
right now?
It's also not
Just-
essential.
Oh yeah,
That's fine.
true. And we have a
She
student
has a
here.
name.
Yeah, she has a name. She's very, very nice, sweetest student I've ever met. I actually got to interview her and ask her a bunch of questions like what she goes through on a daily basis and how she copes with her feelings and with her disease.
Okay.
No, go
No, my other question was because, like I said, like you said, experimental theater was not your thing, and you had challenges. When you went through those challenges, what do you find the most difficult? And if you could change something through the process that you learned, that you'll be like, okay, I will add this.
Okay, so as I said before, the most difficult was writing without words. Because
Yes.
trying to write without words, and not only that, directing without any words, any lines to go off of. But that wouldn't be one thing that I would change. I love that factor to my play. Like that's the biggest part, but like I'm really glad that I pushed my boundaries. Something that I would change would be, that was a great question. Let me get a moment to think about that. One thing that I would change would have to be with my set. I would make the mirrors that I had set out, I would make them more mirror-y, like more so that they were kind of blurry. I would make them more
Yes.
in a way that people can actually look into them. And so that would be something that I had to like, I really had to look into and like work with our tech teacher, Miss Nadu, and like figure that out. But I would want to make them more like mirrory, like I don't even know if that's a word. Like
No, I know what you mean.
Yeah.
More reflective.
yeah,
Like that will actually add a lot to the
Yeah.
play. Because I think the idea was amazing, and experimental theater is not easy.
Melanie, I was very surprised when I was reading through the materials that the play that you had originally conceived wound up being connected to, but very different from the play that I saw. So, having seen the play first and looking at the materials after, this wasn't what this is more, okay, this is what I saw. So it was very interesting to go through and see that process. So, of course, your original concept had the two characters and their interaction and the way that they wound up connecting to each other, and how they were able to learn about themselves with the help of each other. I would like to know if you felt that your final singular character had any elements of the secondary character that you originally envisioned. Did she get enveloped in any direct or indirect ways, or did you feel that she was totally removed by the end of the process?
In what way do you mean totally removed? Like,
Did you try to incorporate any of the elements that that character was serving?
oh, the
In-
friend character?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So I realized that in order to have true happiness, we need to find that within ourselves. I've heard people say that many of times, and like I've read about it, where it's like if you really want to be happy, you have to be happy with who you are as a person, not how other people think of you, or if you have other people around you. Because there are going to be times in your life where you're alone, and in those times you need to be able to cope with like being alone and being sad, or being like not content with who you are. So I felt that if she experienced this alone and she learned to love herself and find that confidence within herself, then she'll be able to achieve true happiness.
So would you say that she wound up serving as her own guide, and that reinforced the lesson that she was learning?
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Quick question. The story that you wrote prior, was your interview with the girl who has alopecia prior to that writing? And if it was not prior to that writing, did she inspire you for your end result?
So my interview with her was before I wrote my first script, and then she wasn't necessarily what inspired me to write my second script, but I thought about, because I took notes during her interview, and so I looked back at my notes because I was already thinking this is not enough, so I need to change something. So I looked back at my notes and I looked more and I thought deeply about it, and I was like, maybe I should change her. So she did inspire me in a way, but it wasn't like as much as it may seem. She mainly inspired me for the first script because she talked a lot about how her friends and her family helped her a lot.
And at the end of this show, the letters that she wrote on the mirrors, ending M.A., what does that stand for?
It's her name.
It's her name.
Okay.
But it also,
Okay.
Okima.
Okay,
but let's say you did not know that, it also looked like I'm okay, Mom.
Right,
Yeah.
because there was,
Because of the way, yeah.
Yeah, but yeah.
You know, it's funny because after I read the play, because I hadn't read it, which is the tricky part, because at first this is how I read it, and I'm like, did she misspell something? Because I thought she's saying, okay, I'm me.
Right.
And to me, I'm like, that is perfect. She's like, I am who I am, it doesn't matter. But then when I saw the NA, I'm like, did she misspell it? Was she trying? But then I read that was her name.
Yeah.
But that's the, it was interesting.
And her name, the reason why I chose that name is because it means I'm different, one of a kind. And so I like the fact that it showed how everyone is different and one of a kind, and we should embrace that. And embrace that we are all different and one of a kind as people.
I love a good symbolic name.
Yes.
When I was writing the script, I was like, I want something cool and like different. And I found it, and I was trying to find where it's originated from Africa, and I was trying to find where in Africa it's originated from, but I could not find it at all. Like, it's nowhere.
If I could add something, like just because we were discussing about the name and you're thinking of having more mirrors, if you plan on doing it more, spell the name one letter at a time, so the audience will not be confused, like, okay, I'm me, like I thought, that's what I thought I was reading.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
thank you.
May I just make a comment?
Yes.
I think you did something very daring and dangerous. And I'm very impressed by that. Especially how now that you spoke to us, my impression of you are very straightforward and very open and very direct. And you decided to make a theater piece, a play, without the very thing that we basically define plays by, right? Dialogue.
Yes.
And I thought, whoa, I was a little overcome. At first, I was a little more ignorant of your audience members. I'm sitting there thinking, maybe the actor just forgot their first line.
That's what I was
Somebody was telling
And I got
Tell me
nervous. So then I started thinking about those feelings, about what happens to your audience when the expectations they have are either rejected or destroyed or challenged in the biggest way possible. These are just some thoughts I had, and on the one hand, I wanted to ask you a million questions after I saw the show, but then I read your thesis after, and you cleared me up about many, many things. And on the other hand, I still feel that you presented a challenge, not only to what our own expectations when we come in to watch a play, but also our ideas about what theater can be or is. And I think I could probably talk to you for quite some time about that. So I'm really impressed by that. You kept saying to me, I wanted to leave this mark. I wanted something people to remember me by. Well, obviously that very daring step, whether it was successful or not, did that. So I find that really interesting because that's a key component to self-esteem, right? Self-love. And that you accepted this challenge and you went head on for it. So hearing you talk about it, I think has won me over in a way that I did not expect. So, congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Final thoughts or comments from the judges?
I'll make one last comment, which is not a criticism, it's strictly in presentation, which you did a wonderful job. I'll pick on the posture, everything is very well done. One thing that we tend to use, unfortunately, because I think mostly New Englanders, I find we try to speak too quickly. So the words get in there. You only at one point in time did you say a lot of ums. If you find yourself saying perhaps slow down, speak your words, because you have us as an audience. We're going to hang on every single syllable that you have to say. Have the confidence in yourself, because we want to get the information from you. So if you slow it down and try to remove those ums, which I'm guilty of, I think everybody in the room can say they're guilty of. There you go. But wonderful presentation, but try to look at that.
Thank you.
If I ask
yeah.
one more?
Yeah, sure, we'll make this work. We're gonna just, we're gonna end up going later at this point.
Are you planning on pursuing theater? What's your next step?
I plan on going to Wheaton College in the fall, and I'll be
Excellent.
majoring in psychology and a pre-med track.
Okay, well, look at
Nice.
later.
I know, big twist.
Yeah.
No one twist that, you guys.
But not surprising, because you
Yeah.
had a very sensitive take on this, especially after reading your thesis. You seem to. If I may, just for 2 seconds. For me, as an actor watching this, I had one opinion of what the performance was. Then I read your thesis and saw the growth of what it started, where you went with the whole, I'm just gonna take a flying leap into the world of experimental theater and tie my arms behind my back and blindfold myself and see what happens.
Yeah.
And I would love to encourage you, I'd be really interested to see if there's now a third step, that there is a script. Maybe there's still no spoken word, but a really specific, instead of she thinks one thought to herself, maybe there's an entire internal monologue that maybe we see it in visuals in a different way, or we don't have to hear it. But I felt that there was a lot going on in her head that I wasn't aware of what specifically she was going through. I mean, I could tell she was losing her hair. I could tell this was upsetting. I could tell that she got through it somehow. But the somehow, and what got her through it, I don't know, because it was so internalized. But there might be a way to kind of open that up. Like I wrote, you have a really sensitive take on it, and I just wanted to blossom a little more so that I get led into the story. Because right now it's very personal between the writer, the director, and the actress. And as audience, I just wanted a little bit more. I wanted to be in it. So yeah, that was
I'm glad that you mentioned that. I'm sorry.
As long as you guys know you're staying
Like,
there.
and I'm glad that you brought that up because you brought that as an actor. Because the only little thing that was missing for me as an actor is to see that transition from when it started, a middle point, and like she said, like an ending, that how she overcame that. And like I said, it is difficult for an actor or for a director when you are doing that without words, to make those transitions visible. But at the same time, you can use some of the props. The mirror could be disintegrating through the play and then coming together. I don't know. You can play with your props, but like that transition to see that character. You know, when you see a show and you want to see the character development, and you be like, oh my God, I hated that character. Now I love this character. You see that because you see that transition. Yes.
And
Just to piggyback a little bit on these, because I think dialogue and one character aren't your only options, right? You can introduce puppetry or dance or something too. So I was going to ask, I wrote it down in the script, I hope we can write on these.
Yes.
If you read the plays for Colored Girls Who Have Considered Suicide, The Rainbow Is Enough, and Funny House of the Negro, because they're both avant-garde pieces that kind of deal with this and use sort of other people doing movement or puppetry, etc. So
I actually haven't read any of those.
Oh my
I
God.
wrote it down.
Okay.
go read those now.
Definitely.
As you walk out of the door.
Definitely.
Yeah, I think that saying, the thing that I thought was, experimental, what does that mean? And it means anything goes, right? That's also a catch-all that kind of gives you leeway to go, okay, that's how I meant it. Okay? So beware that you still need to be just as specific and fleshed out, and the audience needs clues. Because you could go out there and literally, who's the woman that painted her body with chocolate and peanut butter, and then, God, I saw her perform too. But there's people that do performance art that's avant-garde, that is literally like, I'm gonna slather my new body in this substance, and it means something to me, and it's symbolic, and then I'm gonna roll in seeds, and you're gonna get that it's all about, human nature and the life cycle. Maybe I won't, but it's experimental, so it can be a catch-all that you can kind of lean on, as opposed to pushing through it and discovering, more layers or more different ways to communicate. But
Thank you.
Well said.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You guys have a great afternoon.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Good luck.